Welcome to Beneath the Surface, the dark side of crime. Today, we delve into a chilling true crime case that left the nation stunned, a fatal crash that shook an entire community. Was it a tragic accident, or was there something far more sinister lurking beneath the surface? In this video, we'll explore the mysterious circumstances surrounding this devastating event. Join us as we piece together the evidence, uncover hidden truths, and leave no stone unturned. Get ready for a thrilling investigation that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Chapter 1. The crash that shook a town Larkspur Valley was a small, picturesque town where everyone knew everyone else. Its winding streets were lined with cozy homes, and the air was filled with the scent of freshly baked bread from local bakeries and coffee from the Roasted Bean. It was the kind of place where life moved at a slower pace, and people rarely worried about anything more serious than the weather or the next town meeting. That serenity was shattered one crisp autumn evening when the calm was broken by the sound of tires screeching and metal colliding with tree bark. At approximately 7:30 p.m., Michael Lawson's black sedan swerved sharply on Oakwood Ridge Road, an area notorious for its sharp bends and dangerously narrow lanes. The car seemed to lose control for reasons unknown, slipping off the asphalt and into the darkening trees below. A sickening thud followed, echoing through the woods. The first responders who arrived at the scene could hardly believe what they were seeing. Michael Lawson, beloved local businessman and owner of the popular café, the Roasted Bean, lay lifeless at the scene. His car, once a sleek symbol of his modest success, was now unrecognizable, a twisted pile of mangled metal. Though the crash had all the markings of a tragic accident, something felt off. Local eyewitnesses who had seen the car's final moments shared conflicting stories. Sarah Williams, a jogger who was nearby, heard a strange noise just before the crash, a noise unlike the typical screech of tires. It was almost like a grinding sound, like metal on metal, she recalled. I couldn't figure out where it came from. David Miller, another bystander who was on his way to a local restaurant, swore he saw a dark SUV tailgating Michael's sedan before the crash. The SUV, which he said was driving unusually close, disappeared as quickly as it appeared, leaving him with a sense of foreboding. Could the two events be connected? Was this really an accident? The authorities were quick to call it a tragic case of driver error. But as more details emerged, suspicions began to grow. Was Michael Lawson's death truly a result of a simple misstep on a winding road, or was there more to it than met the eye? Chapter 2. Michael Lawson, the man behind the wheel. Michael Lawson had been a staple of Larkspur Valley. At 32, he had taken his modest dream and turned it into a thriving café that locals adored. The Roasted Bean was more than just a coffee shop. It was a gathering spot for everyone in town. Michael knew his customers by name and remembered their favorite drinks with uncanny precision. He was charming, approachable, and generous to a fault, often offering free coffee to those who couldn't afford it. Despite his apparent success, Michael's personal life was anything but perfect. The café, while adored by locals, was hemorrhaging money. Bills piled up on his desk, and his once promising business had become a source of constant stress. Though many people saw Michael as the friendly café owner, few knew about the darker side of his life, the financial troubles he had been hiding. Months before the crash, Michael had been making late-night phone calls to unfamiliar contacts, sometimes looking over his shoulder as though someone might be listening. When employees would ask about the late hours or why certain suppliers hadn't been paid, Michael would brush it off with a nervous laugh. But it wasn't just the café's troubles that weighed on him. Rumors about Michael's involvement with local criminal elements began to surface. He had allegedly started working with a group known for money laundering, a group with ties to organized crime. One employee, Mark Jennings, remembered a particularly unsettling conversation with Michael. He seemed more agitated than usual, Mark recalled. I overheard him on the phone, talking about a loan gone wrong. He said if he didn't pay up, there'd be serious consequences. That same week, Michael had signed a large contract with a supplier, a move that had been out of character given his financial troubles. But it wasn't just money that Michael was dealing with, it was fear. He had gotten himself tangled with people he couldn't simply walk away from. As the detectives sifted through his business records and personal belongings, they found a note scribbled in Michael's own handwriting. "It's too late to back out now. I meet them at midnight." Had Michael been trying to escape the dangerous web he had woven, or was he simply trapped in a situation from which there was no escape? Chapter 3. Eyewitness Accounts. The days following the crash were filled with interviews, statements, and mounting confusion. Law enforcement had yet to identify the cause of the crash definitively, and every witness seemed to have a different version of events. Sarah Williams, the jogger who had been passing by, was adamant that she had heard a strange metallic screech just moments before the crash. It wasn't a normal sound, something that wouldn't have come from the tires. She was sure of it. "It was like someone was grinding something against the car," Sarah said, and then, bam! The crash happened. It was too fast for me to make sense of what was going on. David Miller, the driver traveling in the opposite direction, had his own account. He claimed that Michael's car had been tailgated by a black SUV before the crash. "It was almost like the SUV was pushing Michael's car," David said. "I couldn't see the driver of the SUV, but it was so close to the sedan that I thought for sure they were going to crash. And then, nothing. It just disappeared right before the crash." While Sarah and David's accounts seemed to corroborate each other, their conflicting descriptions of the events left detectives with more questions than answers. Was Michael being pursued by someone? Was the black SUV the cause of the crash, or was it just a coincidence? And if it wasn't a mere accident, what had motivated the SUV's driver to get so close to Michael's car? Detectives began focusing on the SUV. It had been seen in the vicinity multiple times in the days leading up to the crash, always tailgating Michael. Was this just a strange coincidence, or was someone intentionally targeting Michael? Chapter 4. The Forensic Analysis. The crash scene was gruesome, and the forensic team wasted no time combing through the wreckage. The impact of the crash was so severe that the car had crumpled like a soda can, but there was more than just the obvious damage to the vehicle that piqued the investigators' interest. Forensic experts found that the car showed no signs of attempting to brake or swerve in the moments before the crash. Normally, a driver would attempt to brake hard or steer away from an obstacle, but there was no sign of this. No skid marks, no evidence of Michael trying to regain control. The car had simply veered off the road and slammed into the tree. However, the forensic team discovered something even more puzzling. Michael's body showed signs of blunt force trauma, suggesting that he had been struck or had struggled with someone before the crash occurred. His arms, in particular, were bruised as though he had been trying to fight off an attacker. Chapter 5. The Mysterious Black SUV. The investigation into the black SUV, first reported by multiple witnesses, was beginning to unravel deeper and deeper layers of the case. The vehicle had been seen trailing Michael Lawson's sedan for days leading up to the crash. Its dark, unmarked exterior gave it an almost ominous presence on the roads. Eyewitnesses described it as a menacing presence, always lingering just a few feet behind Michael's car, as though it were waiting for something to happen. The authorities had no idea who the driver was. The SUV was registered under a company named Holloway Enterprises, owned by none other than Andrew Holloway, a local businessman with ties to multiple ventures around Larkspur Valley. Holloway, while outwardly charming and well-connected, had always been a bit of a mystery to the townsfolk. He had his hand in many local businesses, including construction and real estate, but rumors about his shady dealings had swirled for years. Now, it seemed as though he might be the key to understanding Michael's fatal crash. Detectives quickly moved to interview Holloway, who, as expected, denied any involvement in the crash. He claimed to have been at a business dinner with clients in a nearby city, far from the crash site. His alibi seemed airtight at first, but no one could corroborate his whereabouts during the critical hours leading up to the crash. Furthermore, his refusal to release the names of the clients he had met with raised more suspicions. Holloway had a well-established reputation for playing things close to the vest, but now there was something about his behavior that felt too calculated. Was he trying to cover his tracks, or was he genuinely unaware of the situation? His SUV had been tailing Michael for days. But why? What was the connection between him and Michael? The investigators dug into Holloway's past and found that he had been in debt to powerful individuals. He had built his fortune on shady investments, many of which were linked to illegal enterprises. Michael Lawson, it seemed, had gotten too close to some of these operations, which made him a potential liability in Holloway's eyes. The pieces were starting to come together. Was Holloway trying to intimidate Michael into staying quiet about the syndicate, or had things gone a step further? Did Holloway order the crash to keep Michael silent? Chapter 6. Hidden motives. As the investigation progressed, the authorities unearthed more evidence of Michael's connection to the underworld, and with it his desperate attempt to extricate himself from the grip of the criminal syndicate he had inadvertently become involved with. The more the detectives uncovered, the clearer it became that Michael wasn't just a small business owner in financial trouble. He had become entangled in a world of illegal dealings that went far beyond Larkspur Valley. Michael's café, once a beacon of warmth and community, had been used as a front for money laundering. The syndicate had funneled large amounts of illicit money through the café's books, masking it as legitimate income from sales. Michael, who initially thought he was helping struggling local businesses, had unknowingly entered a dangerous arrangement. By the time he realized the full scope of what he had become involved in, it was too late. Michael's mounting debts were only a small part of the picture. The deeper issue was his increasing fear. He had started to feel the weight of the syndicate's influence. With the crash looming closer, Michael had started making plans to extricate himself from their clutches, using the evidence he had gathered to negotiate for his freedom. But getting out of the syndicate's grasp wasn't as easy as simply walking away. As one of the detectives put it, "The syndicate doesn't let people go." It seemed that Michael had been trying to use his knowledge of the syndicate's activities as leverage, either to settle his debts or to blackmail his way out of the dangerous web he had become trapped in. But his actions didn't go unnoticed. The criminal organization had eyes everywhere, and once they realized Michael was planning to expose them, they had no choice but to silence him. The more Michael had tried to distance himself from the syndicate, the more dangerous it had become for him. Was his death part of a larger plan to stop him from talking? Did Andrew Holloway play a role in silencing Michael to protect his empire? Chapter 7. The Unlikely Ally. Just as the case seemed to be spiraling into a confusing mess, an unlikely ally came forward. Emily Carter, a waitress at the Roasted Bean and one of Michael's closest friends. Emily had always admired Michael, seeing him as more than just a business owner. He had been someone who genuinely cared for others and had worked tirelessly to build his café from the ground up. Emily was devastated by his death, but she also knew something wasn't right. There had been too many unanswered questions, too many strange occurrences that couldn't be ignored. One evening, after several drinks at a local bar, Emily gathered the courage to speak up. She told the detectives about a conversation she had overheard between Michael and a mysterious man just a day before the crash. Emily had been in the back of the cafe, closing up for the night, when she overheard raised voices from the front. She immediately recognized Michael's voice, but the other man's voice was unfamiliar. From what Emily could hear, Michael was trying to reason with the man, but the conversation was tense. "You don't understand," Michael had said, his tone defensive. "If I don't do this, there's no way out for me." The man's response was barely audible, but Emily swore she heard him threaten Michael. "You're in this deep, Michael. You'll never get out. It's too late." The interaction had unsettled Emily deeply. She had tried to eavesdrop more, but when the man caught her listening, he shot her a menacing glare and warned her to stay out of it. Emily never got the chance to find out who the man was, but the conversation stayed with her. This testimony brought the investigation to a new turning point. The detectives now had concrete evidence that Michael had been in danger before the crash. The stranger, whose identity was still unknown, could be the key to understanding why Michael had been targeted. Was he connected to Holloway, or was he someone even more dangerous? Emily's bravery in coming forward provided the investigators with the missing piece of the puzzle. Without her, the case might have remained a mystery. Chapter 8. The Shocking Revelation. As the investigation unfolded, the detectives soon found themselves with more pieces of the puzzle than they had ever imagined. Emily Carter's brave revelation had served as the spark, igniting a firestorm of new evidence and shocking discoveries that shattered everything the town thought it knew about its beloved mayor. The link between Michael Lawson and Andrew Holloway began to make more sense as more details emerged. But the biggest twist was still to come. Emily's overheard conversation between Michael and the unknown man had confirmed the investigators' suspicions that Michael had been targeted. The idea that someone had deliberately pushed Michael off the road seemed more and more plausible as the detectives pieced together Holloway's financial ties. But it wasn't just about business or even Michael's debts. Michael had unknowingly become entangled in a much more sinister plot involving Evelyn Rhodes, the mayor of Larkspur Valley. Detectives working tirelessly through the night uncovered a series of encrypted communications between Andrew Holloway and a mysterious individual known only as the Architect. After days of intense analysis, the truth finally broke open. The Architect was none other than Evelyn Rhodes herself. Evelyn Rhodes, who had served as the beloved mayor for over a decade, had used her position of power to manipulate the town's laws, politics, and businesses to her advantage. While she presented herself as the face of Larkspur Valley's progress and prosperity, she had been running a criminal empire right under the noses of the citizens she served. It turned out that she had been orchestrating the syndicate's operations, including money laundering and blackmail, for years. Michael's accidental involvement with Holloway was just the tip of the iceberg. Michael had gathered damning evidence about Evelyn's dealings, including a series of financial records that linked her to large-scale illegal activities. Michael had been desperate to escape the mess, and the evidence he had gathered had become his only leverage. He had planned to turn everything over to the authorities, but Evelyn couldn't allow that to happen. It was only a matter of time before Michael realized just how deep Evelyn's corruption went. When Michael started asking too many questions, Evelyn moved swiftly. Using her political influence and Holloway's connections, she orchestrated Michael's death, knowing that his knowledge of her criminal activities was too dangerous to allow him to live. The investigation team was stunned by this revelation. Michael had been murdered because he had uncovered Evelyn's dark side. What made the case even more chilling was the discovery that Holloway had been a pawn, doing her bidding without fully realizing the extent of her control. The arrest of Evelyn Rhodes would forever alter the course of Larkspur Valley's future. Chapter 9. A Web of Lies and Deceit. The arrest of Evelyn Rhodes sent shockwaves through Larkspur Valley. The mayor, once seen as the epitome of clean governance, was now a criminal mastermind, the head of a vast network of corruption and crime. But while the town grappled with the truth, the investigators dug deeper into the syndicate's operations, unearthing the extensive reach of Evelyn's control. Michael Lawson had been far more than just a victim of an unfortunate accident. He had become a pawn in a dangerous game of power and greed. The more the detectives investigated, the clearer it became that Michael had never stood a chance. His good intentions, his desire to make his business succeed, had led him directly into the path of the criminal underworld. Michael's café had been used as a front for money laundering for years. The syndicate had channeled vast amounts of illegal money through the café's books, masking it as legitimate business transactions. The more the investigators dug, the more evidence they found showing just how entangled Michael had been in this criminal web. He had started working with people who had seemingly good intentions, business investors, local politicians, but he had no idea how deep the corruption ran. As Michael's financial struggles continued, his ties to the syndicate had deepened. They had given him money, offered him loans, and helped prop up his failing business in exchange for his involvement in their operations. In return, Michael had unknowingly become an essential part of their criminal network. His café had been used as a laundering facility, and he had become a silent accomplice without realizing the full scope of what was happening. The closer Michael got to exposing the syndicate, the more dangerous his situation became. Evelyn Rhodes had always maintained a clean public image, but behind closed doors, she had been using her political power to keep the criminal organization running. She had used her influence to silence anyone who got too close to the truth, using her resources to manipulate the press, law enforcement, and even the local judiciary. It was clear now that Michael's attempts to expose her had made him a target in a much bigger game. But Evelyn wasn't acting alone. She had powerful allies, including Andrew Holloway, who had acted as her enforcer. Holloway's ties to the criminal underworld went beyond money laundering. He had been directly involved in violent activities, ensuring that no one who got in the syndicate's way survived. It was Holloway's SUV that had been tailgating Michael on that fateful night, and it was Holloway who had driven Michael off the road to silence him. Chapter 10. The Final Twist. The final twist in the investigation came when the detectives uncovered a shocking piece of evidence that none of them could have anticipated. It wasn't just Evelyn Rhodes who had been pulling the strings, it was also someone much closer to Michael than anyone had imagined. As the investigation team worked through the final bits of evidence, they discovered that the architect had also been in communication with someone else, someone who had been right under their noses the entire time. The true mastermind behind Michael Lawson's death wasn't just the mayor or even Holloway. It was someone who had been in the town all along, someone who had known Michael personally, and someone who had used their relationship to manipulate the situation from within. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when the detectives discovered a hidden phone number in one of Michael's personal notebooks. This number led them to a local woman named Rachel Knight, a woman who had worked with Michael at his café and who had been in a close personal relationship with him. Rachel had been hiding a dark secret. It turned out that Rachel had been working with Evelyn Rhodes all along. She had been Michael's confidant, his close ally at work, and yet she had been feeding information back to Evelyn. Rachel had been blackmailed by the mayor, coerced into helping with the syndicate's operations. As Michael started to uncover the truth, Rachel had been tasked with keeping him distracted, leading him further into danger. When Michael started pushing harder for answers, Rachel had been ordered to deliver him directly into the hands of the syndicate. Rachel had been complicit in the plan to stage Michael's death. She had been the one to leak details about his schedule, knowing full well that his life was on the line. She had unknowingly put him in harm's way, feeding information that led to the tragic crash. Her role in Michael's death was a shock to the entire investigation team, and it left them questioning just how far the corruption had spread within Larkspur Valley. Lessons. Learned Michael Lawson's death was tragic, but it served as a powerful catalyst for change in Larkspur Valley. His demise had uncovered a web of lies, corruption, and deceit that ran deeper than anyone could have imagined. The truth, which had been buried under years of manipulation and control, finally came to light, thanks to the hard work of the detectives and the bravery of Emily Carter. As the case progressed, the town of Larkspur Valley was forced to confront its darkest truths. The arrest of Evelyn Rhodes, the seemingly perfect mayor, sent shockwaves through the community. People who had trusted her, who had voted for her, now found themselves questioning everything they thought they knew. They had been manipulated by the very person they had believed was leading them to prosperity. But Michael's death also sparked a much-needed reckoning. The investigation brought to light the deep-seated corruption that had plagued Larkspur Valley for years, and with the fall of the mayor and her accomplices, the town began the slow process of healing. The scandal would not be forgotten easily, but it would serve as a constant reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and the lengths to which people will go to protect their interests. In the aftermath of the case, the town also learned valuable lessons about trust and vigilance. Michael Lawson's story was a cautionary tale about how easily someone could become a pawn in a much larger game. It also underscored the importance of questioning authority, of pushing back against corruption, and of standing up for what is right, no matter the cost. Larkspur Valley, though scarred, was forever changed by Michael's story. And while the scars would take time to heal, the truth had emerged from the darkness, bringing with it the promise of a brighter, more transparent future. Thank you for joining us on this chilling journey into the dark side of Larkspur Valley. Michael Lawson's tragic death uncovered a web of lies, corruption, and deceit that no one saw coming. It's a stark reminder that sometimes even the most innocent lives can be caught in the crossfire of power and greed. But Michael's courage to seek the truth and the bravery of those who stood by him ultimately brought justice to the town. His story teaches us the importance of standing up for what's right, even when the odds are stacked against us. It's a reminder that, no matter how deeply corruption runs, the truth always has a way of coming to the surface. As we close the case on this chapter of Larkspur Valley's history, we can't help but wonder, how many other towns are hiding similar secrets? How many more stories are buried beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered? If you found Michael's story shocking, remember that the truth is always out there. And if you've learned something from this case, let it be a lesson in vigilance, integrity, and the fight for justice. Thank you for watching Beneath the Surface, the Dark Side of Crime. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future investigations into the most gripping true crime stories. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of Michael's story? Was justice truly served, or is there more to be uncovered? Until next time, keep digging beneath the surface.